Hello, welcome to Government. This is Unit 7, Part 1. We're going to be looking at the judiciary in this unit. All right. So, the roots of our judiciary. All right. So, you start by looking at Article 3 of the Constitution. That's where the Supreme Court is created. It sets the jurisdiction of the court. Right. Looking at the jurisdiction of the court, you know what cases they can hear. The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction when cases involve the states or public officials, and it has appellate jurisdiction over everything else. Other than that, for Article 3, it sets up the Supreme Court. It doesn't even tell us how many justices there's supposed to be. The rest of the court system is left to Congress to set up under Article 3. Right? So the Congress and the President, by passing laws, can change the jurisdiction and the setup of the courts basically at any time. Checks on the court, talking about checks and balances, include, like I just said, Congress can change the court's jurisdiction. You can amend the Constitution. Justices can be impeached and removed from office if they have done something wrong. And then the Senate confirms or denies appointees. So that confirming power helps Congress to shape the way the judiciary works. The first Judiciary Act was 1789, and under the Act in 1789, they created one federal court per state. Right? There are more than that today. It created circuit courts. Circuit court means that they move. All right. So these are the appellate courts, and they were made up of one district judge, that would be from the federal court, and then two Supreme Court justices. All right, and they would meet twice a year. Right? And like I said, the circuit courts were appellate courts, but they could also act as trial courts for very important cases. When the first government was introduced, set up with George Washington as president, he appointed 6 Supreme Court justices, 5 justices, and 1 Chief Justice. Right? There was no set number. That's just what he appointed, and that's what was approved. Of course, today the standard is 9. Right? We haven't gone bigger. We haven't gone less. Now, we're less if somebody retires or dies, of course, until somebody new is appointed. That's what I was talking about. Until 1869, the numbers had varied. Got to 9, and that just became standard. All right, it has been the standard, and it's part of that unofficial amendment because it's tradition. In the 1930s, FDR, President Roosevelt, tried to introduce a court reform bill, and it was a disaster for him. It was a big scandal as he was seen trying to grab too much power. Remember, it's the 30s, the age of the dictators with Hitler and Mussolini, Stalin, those guys. And so it went very badly for him. Really ruined his second term as president, right? Because the New Deal was basically killed off by that scandal. All right? And so nobody has attempted to change the number of Supreme Court justices since then. The Marshall Court, which we have talked about, all right, John Marshall was Chief Justice. He was appointed in 1801 by President Adams, and he will serve as Chief Justice until 1835. All right. John Adams, that's Marshall on the left, Adams on the right. Okay. He changed the court to what it really operates as today. All right. He discontinued the practice of seriatim opinions. That's where each justice gave their own opinion, right? And now you have one opinion basically written by the majority, right? That becomes the precedent for the rest of the courts, and basically the court speaks as one then. Marbury versus Madison was the big case in 1803 and established the power of judicial review, and that's where the court assumed the power as declaring acts of Congress or the states as unconstitutional. Right? You can find the idea. It wasn't brand new. Alexander Hamilton had written about it in the Federalist number 78. The Federalists were a series of papers written to try to persuade people to support the new Constitution, eventually getting it to ratification. There you go. I wish for the power to declare laws unconstitutional. Why waste a wish on something you can grant yourself? All right. McCulloch versus Maryland, 1819. These, of course, are cases that we have talked about. All right, so that's why we're going over them rather quickly. But this case established the supremacy of the federal government over the state governments, by protecting the bank. We saw this cartoon before, but establishing a national bank was necessary to carry out Congress's power to tax. Exactly. That's why we want it stopped.